Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
With each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There is no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. I have identified myself as an alcoholic. Are there any other alcoholics here tonight? Welcome home. Not to embarrass you, but to get to know you better, will the people in the first 30 days of sobriety please stand? And as I point to you, please give me your name and your disease. Hey, Fred. I'm sorry? Hiya. Welcome. Dawn. Chris. Patrick. Lexi. John. Andra. Marion. Ryan.
Patrick, alcoholic.
Patrick. Yay, welcome. All right, you are all welcome. If there are any visitors from outside the greater Los Angeles area, will you please stand? As I point to you, give us your name, where you're from, and your home group. Stand.
My name is Dede from Washington, D.C.
Wow, welcome.
Alcoholic named Joab from Pittsburgh, PA.
Pittsburgh.
Mary McNally from Santa Barbara.
Oh.
AA is in Montecito, like 5 years.
Wow, great.
My name's Craig. I'm an alcoholic. I'm from Des Moines, Iowa, and my home group is the Drake Ministries group.
Great, thanks.
My name's Jenny, and I'm here to support Craig.
Great, thanks. Welcome either or. Great, you're all welcome. Are there any Al-Anons here tonight? You're welcome here too. There is no seat saving after the meeting starts. Would you please raise your hand if there are any empty seats next to you? If you are standing in the back or the doorways, please look for an empty seat. The heart of our program is identified in Chapter 5 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Tonight I have asked this gentleman to read a portion of Chapter 5.
Chapter 5, how it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed her path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to the simple program, usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born this way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol. Cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with a complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrong. 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all of these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I cannot go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And that C, God could and would if he were sought. Thank you.
And now let's have a hand for our first speaker, Joan. Okay. Lori. Well, it was a rather inauspicious beginning, wasn't it? I'm Lori. I'm an alcoholic. And I want to thank Aaron for grabbing me at the last moment to come and do this before I had a chance to obsess over what I was going to wear or what I was going to say or any of that stuff. But I am warm. Okay. I don't take off my clothes quite as freely as I used to. I know, it's a good thing. Believe me, it's a good thing. Yeah. I'm Lori, I'm an alcoholic. Golly, yeah, 10 minutes. I'm old, it's got to be a pretty short version. Okay, I grew up in Australia at a cocktail party. My parents had lots of cocktail parties, and when they were young, it was wonderful because they were beautiful and they were glamorous, and all their guests were beautiful and they were glamorous, and they laughed, and the ice tinkled in their glasses, and they had the cigarettes, they went, ha! And it was wonderful, and I used to watch and think, when I grow up, it's going to be like that, and I'm going to grow up, and it's going to, and I'm going to be happy, I'm going to be glamorous, I'm going to be beautiful, and I'm going to have wonderful children and a beautiful husband and all this fabulous life. And anyway, that's the way it looked when I was young. But, their disease progressed, And after a while, the cigarettes were put out and the drinks, and it wasn't cleaned up, and the guests got a little bit rowdier and a little bit messier. And when they went home, my mom and dad had just wailed the shit out of each other, and it wasn't pretty.
it started to not get pretty. And so I thought, okay, I want the way it was. I want the way it was. I don't want the way it became. And they became alcoholics, and I was not going to be an alcoholic. I was not. No. I was going to be glamorous and have this wonderful life and not be alcoholic like they were. So anyway, they died of their alcoholism. My father died at the age of 60 from arteriosclerosis as a result of alcoholism, and my mother died of cirrhosis of the liver at the age of 62. And I knew that I wasn't going to die an alcoholic death because, after all, I wasn't an alcoholic. And at my mother's funeral, my brothers and I got completely wasted. And we didn't get it. We didn't get that there was something wrong with this picture. We didn't get it. I didn't know anything about alcoholism. I didn't know it was a family disease. I didn't know that there was a genetic flaw in my nature that would cause me to have an allergy to alcohol. That once I started drinking it, I had to keep drinking it until it was over, So my own alcoholism. Yeah. I ran away from home when I was 21. I went to England, which was as far away from Melbourne as I could get. And it's the other side of the planet. And I met my first husband there. He was an American. And we came to the States, and that's how I ended up here. My second husband was also an American. And he's right here, there. And he was with me through the last 6 years of my drinking and using, and it was pretty hairy. When we got together, it was party, and it was fun. But it became less fun, and it became ugly. And I was a very protected alcoholic, so I didn't have the hideous downfall that so many people have. I had, I never got arrested for having a DUI. I never got arrested drunk. Nobody ever told me that I should stop drinking. And my doctor would sort of look up my nose and say, but he never said anything about my stopping drinking or using. Nobody ever said anything. And I had everything constructed in such a way that I hoped that nobody would ever notice that I had this terrible, terrible thing wrong with me. And it just got so I couldn't keep going. I couldn't keep going. I was exhausted, trying to keep it together, throwing up. My little girl would be on the other side of the bathroom door saying, "Mommy, are you being sick again?" And she was 3. And already her friends were starting to look at me at the age of 3 because Kiki's mommy was different from the other mommies, and it was horrible. It was horrible. I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't want to join Alcoholics Anonymous because that was a cult of Jesus freaks, and I really didn't want to have anything to do with it. I also knew that if I was in Alcoholics Anonymous, that you guys didn't drink, and how could I go to Paris and not drink fine wines, And as it was, I went to Paris with my husband to celebrate his 50th birthday, and I was so hungover there and drank so much garbage, not just fine wines, but everything, and I just did not have a very good time in Paris at all, or in Rome, where we also went. And a month after that, I found my way into these rooms. And it was a little classroom downstairs here, and it was right after Thanksgiving in 1989. See, I got sober in the 80s, just 6 weeks in the 80s. And I walked in there, and I watched the other alcoholics, actually. I sat in my car for a while watching them go in. They're alcoholics, terrified. And I got out of the car, I walked over, and they were so kind. They were so kind to me. And we chatted outside for a little while, and then I went into the room, and they said, "It's meeting time." And I said, "Oh, it's so comfortable out here just talking. We don't have to go in there." No, it's meeting time. And in the meeting, everybody was saying that they were an alcoholic. And I was absolutely horrified because, it was so shameful. And they were so proud of it. I'm your alcoholic secretary, I'm your alcoholic literature person, I'm your alcoholic treasurer. Oh, Jesus, this is awful. They're so proud of being an alcoholic. They went around the room and introduced themselves, and it came to me. And I said it, I said, "Yeah, I'm Laurie and I'm an alcoholic." And there it was, my shame. Choked it up like a hairball. Out it came. Laid there on the table for everybody to see. There it was. You know, this was the most hideous thing, that my secret, this shame, this horror that existed in me. And I choked it up, and there it was. And you guys said, "Hi, Laurie." And I realized that you accepted me, not in spite of the fact that I couldn't stop drinking, but because of it. You accepted me because I had this shame, this horror in my life, this secret, this albatross around my neck, and you accepted me. And you smiled, and I saw the light in your eyes, and I knew that you could show me a way to live. And so, you know, from somebody who didn't want to come in here, because I was a gracious lady and you didn't understand, you know. I wasn't like you, I wasn't going to be like you, and I didn't want anything that you had, I was sure. But I was, at that point, prepared to do anything you told me to do, because I could not live another day the way I was living. So I got a sponsor. You know, I had to find the right sponsor. And they said, find someone who has what you want. So I found one with a car phone, you know. I wanted a car phone. She had a car phone. She was awesome. You know, she's still one of my best friends. She taught me how to do the steps. She taught me the steps, and we went through the book. And I did what I was supposed to do. I mean, at that first meeting, they said, keep coming back. So I went up to those people at the next meeting and said, I'm here. You know, I came back. I mean, I took direction from the get-go. They said, pray. I prayed. I didn't know what I was praying to. I was on my knees. I was praying, whatever you want. I couldn't go another day the way I'd been going. And I was so much in love with Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, I went around, I called all my friends. I said, I'm an alcoholic. They said, no shit. They said, yeah. I said, I've joined Alcoholics Anonymous. They said, oh, thank God. And so, you know, I was very lucky I outed myself. And my ego stopped me from picking up a drink. Because, you know, after that I realized, oh, if I pick up a drink, everybody knows I'm an alcoholic, so I can't drink anymore. And that stopped me from picking up for quite a while until the desire left, until I'd worked the steps and the obsession left. My pride and my ego kept me sober, and I know it's not supposed to, but it did. I was very, very fortunate that way, because I really didn't want to look bad. I'd spent all my life trying to look good, and when I came in here, I continued to try to look good. I wanted to be the best little AA you ever saw. And so I did what I was told to do. And tonight, I will be taking a cake for 16 years of sobriety. It was actually November 21st was my 16-year anniversary, but I always like to wait for my daughter to arrive. You know, God, you know, I've stayed married. I've stayed married for the past 16 years to a man who I didn't appreciate then, but who I now know is an absolute gem. My daughter has grown up to be healthy and happy and beautiful. She lives in another country, which says something about my mothering, but I don't know quite what. She is dynamic and gorgeous, and we have a wonderful relationship. You know, I have the ability through this program to be a wife and a mother and a friend and a worker. And sometimes I look at my life and I think, my God, what would it have been if I hadn't got sober? What would have happened over the last 16 years if I hadn't got sober? And I hate to think what that movie looks like. You know, I sometimes go along in my life. I mean, I was riding my bike one day along Circular Quay in Sydney and around the Sydney Harbour Opera House, you know, around there. I was on my way to an AA meeting, and it was about 6:30 in the morning, and the sun was just coming up, and the whole world was sparkling. I thought, you know, I love the movie that my life is today. And all I need to do is take one drink, and I can change it. I can turn it into Requiem for a Dream or something really gnarly. You know, I can destroy this totally. You know, I'm not happy every single day of my life. I'm not. But I'm happy most days. And I know that all I need to do is to guarantee misery for me is to pick up one drink, because I might never draw another sober breath for the rest of my life. And that would guarantee that I will never have another happy day, because I was not happy at the end of it, and I know I won't be happy again with it, because it's not going to get any better. If there was a way of making it work for me and for being happy out there, I'd have found it. Every single day I woke up and tried to find it. Tried to find a way to make myself happy. Tried to make it work. This time it'll work. I'll just have this much. I'll only do this. I'll do this and this and this. And it didn't work. I mean, it was over. It was totally over. If you're in here, it's over for you too. It's not going to work again. And I'm really sorry it's come to this, you know? It's not, you know, but it's not pretty out there. It is not pretty dealing with this disease and trying to beat it. It's not beatable. It isn't. I'm just really, really grateful to be here. I'm so glad that I got this little handbook of how to live life after struggling for a long time out there, trying to figure it out myself, you know. Fortunately, I came in here and saw that figure it out is not one of the slogans of Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. We've got a lot of other ones that are really awesome and that work for us. And anyway, you guys have done it for me. You know, you've done it for me. You've shown me how to live, and you've shown me how to live in the light and to grow and to be happy. And for that, I'm very, very grateful. Thanks. Okay. All right, now let's give a warm welcome to our main speaker, Clancy.
Thank you very much. My name is Clancy Imislund. I'm an alcoholic. I'm very glad to be here tonight, safe and sane and sober, as I like to say, because I didn't used to be, and I might not be again sometime. That's the nature of the illness. There are a lot of people in this room who are in and out, in and out, in and out, and I know that phenomenon intimately. I always have got a warm spot in my heart for the Malibu meeting because I had my first birthday cake here after slipping for 10 years. And I had no front teeth, and I was wearing hand-me-down clothes, and I just felt wonderful. We have a lot of young folks here tonight, a lot of young people, and I want to tell you something. Sometimes we don't take the moment to acknowledge them. My home group, the Pacific group, we have a lot of young people. Now I want to tell you young people here today that if you're like the young people in our group, you should realize you are the future leaders of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'll tell you something else. If you're like the young people in our group, I'm really glad I'm going to be dead. Jesus Christ. Nothing personal, just an observation. I want you to know that you have a little distinguished guest here today. Over right here, Jim M., who was the speaker last night at Rodeo and came here trying to refill his tanks. He just. But the young people here, I know, and the people who are slipping and in and out, I always empathize with them because I had a very difficult time to stay sober. One morning I found myself in a situation that I couldn't believe I could be in. Two big guys were throwing me out of a Skid Row mission in downtown Los Angeles and said, "Stay out of here, you damn mooch." And I tried to explain to them, I'm not a mooch. 3 years ago, I was on the faculty of the University of Texas. Ads that I wrote were running that very week in Life and Time and New Yorker, Saturday Post. I've had my picture in the New York Times for one of my achievements. But it's really hard to explain these things in midair, you know. And I stood outside of that mission on a cold, rainy morning, cold like it is now, only raining. And I thought, Jesus, how can this be? And I had a terrible feeling. I didn't know what the feeling was. But I know what it is now because I've seen other people have it. And that feeling is, you suddenly realize there's no friendly direction. It's all equally bad. Nobody really cares. You burned them off. You burned them off. You think that's funny, huh? Wait till I get to the part where I get leukemia and die. You like that? But there's no friendly direction. And if someone went up to me that morning and said to me, you know, Slim, you're dying. You're down to 120-some pounds. You've lost your wife and children, never see them again. You've lost your career. You used to, once upon a time they called you a boy genius. Now you can't even get a job washing dishes. You've lost all your clothes and ID. Remember the guy in Texas gave you a car to drive to Los Angeles, and you got drunk in Phoenix and lost the car and all of your identification, all of your clothes. Everything was in there. You'll never see that again. And that's the town where you got in a beef with a guy, and he threw you in jail. He turned out to be a cop and threw you in jail overnight. In the middle of the night, you got into another beef, and somebody kicked your front teeth out. That's why you got no front teeth anymore, and you're bleeding. And your little mother up in Wisconsin, you're an only child, and she's not even allowed to accept phone calls from you anymore because your stepfather's so tired of watching you play on her emotions till she'll go down to her tiny little bank account and take some more money out and send it to her little boy and try to help him. And he'd rather have her think you're dead than the way you are. Now, you've been going to AA meetings for 10 years now around the country, sitting in meetings, smirking, laughing at these idiots, their dumb little steps, their dumb little traditions, their dumb little worshiping and all this. And you know that they're inferior people at best. But now you're dying. Why wouldn't you go back to AA one time and just realistically admit you're an alcoholic? And if some guy had said that to me, and if I were in a mood to be honest, I'd have to say, pal, it isn't the way it looks. I'm not really an alcoholic. I wish to hell I was. God, I'd be so happy to be an alcoholic, but I'm not. It's much more complex than that. I know I had problems since I was a little boy. When I was a little boy growing up in a very protected Norwegian Lutheran environment, I knew I had problems then. I always felt there was something missing in me. And I don't know what it is, but people seem to recognize it. I could get along with people at a distance, but when they got close, it always seemed to be they saw something in me they didn't like, and they didn't like me much anymore. And I don't seem to fit in with people. I don't feel comfortable in groups. And the people I want to be with, I feel awkward and clumsy when I'm around them. They don't seem to like me. And I just can't maintain good relationships a lot. And I don't know why. But I figured when I grew up, it's going to be all different. Because when I was a kid, it just seemed to me, if you're supposed to feel like this, I felt like this a lot for different reasons. I thought when I grow up, it'll be different. I grew up, and I felt much the same. Different reasons, much more complex reasons, but much the same. But I'd become somewhat of a successful writer, so I was able to try to deal with it. I went to spent thousands of dollars in psychoanalysis to get to the root of my problems. I found one thing I want to tell you about psychoanalysis that's great. You find ways that you've been screwed you never guessed before. I discovered I'd been repressed by the Norwegian Lutheran Church. I didn't know that, but after he explained it to me, I could see it. It turned out that I was scarred by the Depression. I didn't even know there'd been a Depression. But once he explained it to me, I could see it. Time after I'd come out there, just out of there saying, Jesus, no wonder I'm doing badly. And drink another couple dollar bills. And I read books, and I did a lot of things. I'm a reader, and I'm a thinker. And I would get together with little cult groups and sit in the back porch and discuss intellectual things. But the greatest friend I ever had in my life, I discovered when I was 15 years old, nervous, dumb little boy, this tall, pimply-faced, but terrible need to do something. And when the Second World War started, I told my mother I wanted to go to Superior to visit my aunt, and she gave back my little bag and gave me a bus fare, and I hitchhiked to San Francisco from Wisconsin. Didn't know where the hell I was going. I didn't know it couldn't be done, so I just did it. And I told some guy I wanted to be in the Marine Corps and kill chaps. He said, "You're a little small, kid. But you might be able to get in the Merchant Marine. They'll take anybody. All the good guys have gone in the Navy, and they'll probably take you." So he dropped me off the Coast Guard office there, and I said, "I want to be in the Merchant Marine." He goes, "Fill out this application, kid." And the guy in the car told me, "Don't put down 15, put down 16. So I put down 16. He said, "Wow, you're only 16, kid. We need your parents' permission." So I took it around the block, got my parents' permission, and brought it back. And they were really crying for people. They gave me Seaman's papers right there. And they sent me down to the National Maritime Union with another guy, and we signed up for union dues. I had no idea what they were. They took us to a ship, and that afternoon we were on a load of torpedo warheads going to the South Pacific. And it was really fun for about an hour. Then it kind of tailed off. But I was in something they called a cabin. It wasn't a cabin. In Wisconsin, cabins got logs in them. This was a room is what it was. With three of the worst type of people you ever saw. They talked dirty and they swore and they had whiskey in there and they drank and they talked about girls. Oh God, they were sinners. I mean, I don't get me wrong, even at the age of 15 in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, I'd had sex. But I'd been apprehensive, and I'd been afraid, and I'd been alone. And these guys were doing it with people. Jesus. And they would drink. It was just terrible. And it turned out I was the fourth member of their four-man watch. In other words, four guys did things at the same time, and I didn't know anything. And they were really, they would have been pirates in any other era, just. But I became the ship fool finally, which gives you a role, Hey, kid, get down to the engine room and tell them we need a left-handed wrench. Hey, kid, go up on the bridge, tell the captain we need some elbow grease. And these guys would sit and drink whiskey and laugh, and one day one of these guys turned to me and says, "How about you, Junior? You think you're man enough for a little snort?" He shoved that whiskey in my face. And I was dumb. And I was mixed up. But by God, at least I wasn't. I knew they must be Catholics or something. Just some. So I was just going to lay this guy out. I was going to say, "Don't you ever put that whiskey in my face again. I guess you don't know that I'm a Norwegian Lutheran. We don't drink whiskey. And even if I did, I promised my mother and grandmother I never would drink it. And I'm not going to be like you people. Now you leave me alone." I knew they'd just wipe him out. And just as I was going to say it, he said, "Well, do you think you're mad enough?" And I heard this voice say, "Goddamn right." So I had my first drink of whiskey out of the first bottle of whiskey I was ever close to, and I threw it up all over. They laughed. To this day, I don't know a feeling that's worse than extreme public humiliation, where people just make you look like such a... I just went... I thought later there was one thing I might have done. I'm glad I didn't think of it. They'd have thrown me overboard, but it would have been cute. Lean over, you. Yeah. Take that. Just give one in the old eye. But water sales aren't going good tonight? I noticed you didn't distribute them when I was sitting there, did you? I've got a sore throat. I don't have a sore throat. But I tried to, when nobody was around, but then I'd try to drink whiskey because I thought it'd make me look like a man. And I'd throw it up, not have to wipe it up so they didn't find out. We were just coming into Pearl Harbor fighting. They're still digging up ships the night before my 16th birthday. And I took a drink of whiskey when nobody was around, and it stayed down. And at first I couldn't breathe, and then something strange happened. I found myself feeling significantly better. I didn't know what the feeling was, but in retrospect, I presume what it was that for the first time, two things happened, I suppose. First thing, that damn scale went away for the first time that I can remember. Just disappeared for a while. And I found myself feeling the way those men looked. I was a grown-up. And the next day they took me into Honolulu and got me 2 or 3 bottles of beer, and I got drunk, and they laughed. I thought it was funny, and they thought it was funny. It wasn't no big deal. And I didn't become a terrible raging alcoholic. I discovered a new addition to my life, that alcohol makes you feel better. You know, I had no breakthroughs. I can't think of any breakthroughs I've had in my life. I'm just so obtuse. I hear people in AA talk, and it's just heartwarming to me what they've learned. I mean, the guy said, when I held that first drink of alcohol down, I knew I'd gone into a new garden of experience, full of flowers and fruits to savor, until the fruits turned sour in my mouth and I came to this wonderful program. I thought, God, I wish I'd known that. All I learned was, if you don't puke and you can breathe, it sure makes you feel better. That's what I learned. And I didn't become a terrible alcoholic. I later on went on another ship to the Aleutian Islands to get the Japanese out of the Aleutian Islands. And I went in the Navy. At the end of the war, I was in a naval hospital up in Northern California being sewed together. And they passed around some tests. I'm a junior in high school, but I'm a reader, so I cracked those tests. I'm the top 4 percentile or something. They gave me a high school diploma, and I went back to Wisconsin and went to University of Wisconsin, won some trophies for the university, went out in the world, became a sports writer, newspaper sports writer. Got married in college to this lovely girl with black flashing eyes and black hair, something we never saw in the Lutheran church, I'll tell you. And she turned out to be a Catholic, and I knew I was in trouble right then, but she began manifesting the terrible, terrible behavior patterns of Catholics that I didn't know about. And that is, if you marry a good Catholic girl, you are about to have a big family, bucko, I'll tell you. And I became a national distributor of small Catholics. So I had to get better jobs. I got in advertising and advertising agencies and big corporations, and I was slick and I was cute and I could write well, and I did all the drank and smoked and raised hell and had a lot of fun, and the only problem I ever had is I have a tendency sometimes to drink a little too much. Or as my psychiatrist pointed out, I have many times been thoughtlessly overserved. So I was sent to an AA meeting when I was still a young guy, 22 years old. And I went to this meeting. I thought I was back in that ship again. So some old fool, 8 guys sitting around here, what are you supposed to be? I said, somebody suggested I come here. He said, do you think you're an alcoholic? I said, no, I don't think so. He said, what do you think's wrong with you? I guess I'm too sensitive. Listen to this, Earl. You know. I never said that again for a long time, I'll tell you. But I went to AA for a while. If you're new tonight, I didn't take you long to discover what alcoholics are. Alcoholics are people whose problem is alcohol. You can read those steps and read it. People whose problem is alcohol. As a result of that, their lives get all screwed up. And then they come to believe that God is going to restore them to sanity. Then they're going to turn their lives over to God. And then there's some crap after that. But those first 3 are enough to keep you out for the rest of your life, I'll tell you. And I'll tell you something. From then on, when I worked in corporations, we'd get drinking heavy. Somebody would say, you know, you have to do something about your drinking. And AA was not very well known then. I could always go to the personnel office and say, you know, you're right. I'm going to this new thing called AA in town, and they'd at least give you a couple of weeks where you could look for another job or something. And I went up and down and up and down. All my kids were born in different states, and all up and down and up and down. And finally I went down in Dallas and didn't come back up. And I couldn't believe it. And I had to get out of there fast. I got fired off a job. They took my company car back. My family left me. I was all of a sudden evicted from my house. And this guy gave me a car to drive to Los Angeles to get out of there. And I lost that. And I'm standing outside of a Skid Row mission in Los Angeles. And I remember thinking, God, if I were an alcoholic, if I could be like those simpletons and quit drinking and turn your life over and everything turns right. But there's so many reasons I'm not an alcoholic. One great was tonight. Somebody talked about can't stop drinking if you're an alcoholic. I could stop drinking anytime. I've done it again and again and again. My problem is not that I can't stop drinking, but after I stop, sometimes the next day or a couple of days later, somebody seems to sneak into my bedroom in the middle of the night and put an invisible spring in my gut. And the next day they start to tighten it. And it doesn't come out as I need a drink. It comes out as just a little growing restlessness. Just a little irritability. Just a little tired of the goddamn sermons all the time from people who are living off my ability. I'm sick of being treated like a second-class citizen by people who don't have the right to do so. And little by little, the pressure mounts. And I've tried a lot of things. I read Nietzsche, I read books, I went to cults, I went to a lot of things. But you know what cuts that feelings? 2 or 3 drinks. And that's why I drink. I don't drink because I'm a drinker. I drink because I'm a feeler. And I drink and and almost everybody in this room, I'm sure, knows that feeling. Shit, baby. Do you know any therapy that can take a depressed, cruelly depressed guy walking up the street thinking, which will hurt least, hanging myself or jumping off a building, and going to a bar to have just a couple of farewell drinks? Oh, God. And 5 minutes later, you're down the bar saying things like, "You with anyone, Granny?" That is something. My only job is that sooner or later I drink too much, and then people say, "See, your problem was alcohol, wasn't it?" You have to say, "Yeah, I guess it was." But it wasn't. It wasn't. It's something different inside of me somehow. And I started to that mission. I would have bet my life nothing would help that, because I'd read everything I could read. I knew all I could know, and I'm smarter than the people who tried to help me, and nothing helped. But I knew I had to get out of the rain, so there's only one place you can go when you look that bad. You can go to an AA club. The worse you look, the more they like it. Oh, look at the newcomer. Yeah. So I found out where the AA club was, and I didn't try to be in Wilshire and Fairfax. I didn't know where that was, but they gave me directions to walk there, 72 blocks through the rain, and sick and my mouth bleeding and pain. And I got to this club, and the same old idiots. "Welcome, you're home now." Jesus Christ. And I hung around that club all day on a Saturday, and it was raining, and at night they had a meeting, and I ate about 4 pounds of cake because I could chew that. And then a meeting on gratitude, and I almost puked it up again, Jesus. Then everybody went home, and it's still raining. I thought, Jesus, I'm going to die in that rain tonight if I got there. So I thought I'd better pretend to be an alcoholic, go to the whip. I went to the manager. I said, I'm a newcomer. I have no place to stay. Could you help me? He said, "Yeah, kid, you're in luck. Guy named Joe Quinn left an old 49 Merc in the parking lot last summer. It doesn't run, but it's dry. You can sleep in that." "You want me to sleep in an abandoned car?" "Yeah, good deal, huh?" "Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate that." I still remember vaguely sleeping in that car, cold and my mouth bleeding, cut open again somehow, and I just felt, how can this be happening to me? I'm a sensitive, intelligent, able person, and everybody in the world thinks I'm just an asshole. And why, what's happened? And next day I went to the club, and it was Sunday morning, and they had a meeting, and I had 4 pounds of cake, and somebody talking about God or Jesus or somebody I wanted to hear about. Because one of the great things about being raised in a strict church, you know when you're bad. And at one time I thought I was bad because I didn't always remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. I didn't always honor my father and mother, and sometimes I swore. But by this time I'd broken all 10 commandments. When you've broken all 10, you hope that there's no God. If God exists, I am damned. It wasn't until I was sober a while I realized I had never really broken all 10 commandments. I've never coveted my neighbor's manservant. In West LA, you never can tell. And I hung around that club, and it kept raining, and I slept in that abandoned car night after night until it stopped raining, and God, it was just terrible. And the manager of the club says, "You're not supposed to be in the daytime, it's supposed to be for members, but if you go to meetings every night, you're such a mess, I'll let you hang around as long as you don't ask anybody for money." And I did that. And I had no idea that'd be my sobriety date, because I knew more about Alcoholics Anonymous than they did. And it's an odd thing how I think about that. What a strange thing. In a couple of those meetings, I saw a movie actor. I'd seen him in the movies. Wow. And I found out years later, he'd only been in 3 movies. I saw him in 2 of them. And I've been in more movies than the last few years than he ever has been. But I didn't know that then. He was a movie actor, and to me, a movie actor says famous and wealthy. I thought, maybe he needs a new friend. And they started grinding me to get us sponsored. I said, Bob, would you be my sponsor? He said, sure, kid, I want you to do what I tell you. Oh, sure, Bob. And I had a plan. I really hate to admit it because I was not a very nice person. I'm not a nice person now, really, but my plan then was to get some money from this mooch and get some teeth and get some clothes and go back to New York and say, yes, I know I screwed up on several jobs and I cost Tracy Locke a big account, but I've learned my lesson. I'm not drinking now. I want to work. And they'll say, we don't know if we can trust you. I said, I'll work for nothing, I'll tell them, till you think I can do it. And they'd let me work, and I'd knock them dead with my writing. They'd pay me a lot of money. I'd save the money, come back to Los Angeles one day, buy the AA club, and burn it down. Hopefully, when they're having an all-group meeting in it, you'll just hear them scream, ah, ha, 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 turn it over, you asshole, you know. And they said he wasn't a very good actor, but he was, because he acted nice in the meetings. That took a lot of acting for him. He turned out to be a right-wing fascist AA pig of the worst sort. Just, do this, do this. And I used to think, why am I taking this crap from this guy? Because he was my only available meal ticket out of that situation that I could see. And it turned out he didn't like me. And I understand that, because I don't want to brag, but I was the worst type of newcomer there is in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I know that because I've sponsored a couple of people like me over the years. And they're the kind of people, when they walk into a room, they say, hi. You just want to take out a pistol and say, here's your hi. You know. And what these people are, people who've been around AA a long time and know all about it, and keep drinking and showing up wanting more attention. And everything you tell them, they say, oh, I already know that. And he would, I remember telling Bob, after he gave me about an hour explanation one day about the book or something, I said, that's pretty interesting, Bob, but you misquoted the book. That makes people crazy. I'll tell you something else I learned. People do not like to take crap from people without front teeth. They don't like to do that. But he was a good guy. He tried to help me. He gave me my first meeting in the Malibu meeting, my first birthday cake. And later on, he got drunk and died. But he, I heard him say to somebody one day, either maybe to me or somebody else, he said, you know, as long as you think your problem is alcohol, you're going to die drunk. Now, what the hell is this? Some new Screen Actor Guild breakthrough? I said, Bob, what the hell you say that for? That's ridiculous. He said, that's true, kid. Your problem, if you think your problem is alcohol, you're in trouble. What is the problem, Bob? Is it psycho-cybernetics? What could it be? He said, no, listen. It's something that sounds like alcohol, and a lot of people think it's the same thing, but it's not. It's so much different that it kills them. It is something called alcoholism. I said, oh, Jesus, Bob. Don't play word games with me. I look terrible, but I'm awfully smart. Alcoholism, hooray, I'm cured. Yeah. Shut up, he explained. And for the next 2-3 days or a couple of days, he gave me a kind of running, intermittent lecture on the subject, most of which I just forgot as quickly as I could. But something stuck in my mind that has been a bulwark of everything I know about this program ever since. It boiled down to this. He said, I'll tell you how you overcome a problem with alcohol, kid. You stop drinking, and you clean up your act, and you're home free. I said, oh, come on, Bob, that doesn't work. I've tried that 1,000 times. He said, that's right. That's because your problem is not alcohol. Your problem apparently is alcoholism, which unfortunately for you and me looks almost exactly the same to the naked eye. But alcoholism is a mind-obsessing, perception-distorting, bodily eroding, finally fatal thing called alcoholism. And nobody knows they've got it. I said, Jesus, Bob. He said, if you can stop drinking, you're home free. In alcoholism, you stop drinking and you clean up your act, and it has no long-term effect on your life other than to gradually make it so painful you can't stand it. I said, Jesus, Bob. I never heard anybody explain that before. That sounds just exactly like what I've been doing. I said, if that's the case, then why do these alcoholics, why do they drink alcohol when it's so bad for them? He said, that's what people don't understand, kid. He said, they don't drink alcohol because it's so bad for them. The mark of the alcoholic is that you have to have an unusual reaction to alcohol. What do you think that unusual reaction is? I said, I know about it. I've heard him talk about it. You have a craving. It sets up a craving and you can't stop. He said, nah, that's podium talk. The unnatural reaction is something, for me, is this. When I have a few drinks, things almost instantly look different. When I have a few drinks, it almost instantly changes my relationship to the world around me. When I have a few drinks, I become taller and more self-contained, and they become smaller and less frightening. I said, Jesus, Bob, what's wrong with that? He says, because it isn't really happening, you dumbbell. It's in your head. And eventually you apparently it set up this craving that I don't understand, but a lot of people set it up. You know, in all these years, they've never had an explanation for craving, this phenomenon of craving. But I have a philosophy, my own version of it, I think, at least for people like me, I can understand it very well. When you're drinking, finally, to get away from here and get over there, and as soon as you have a few drinks, you feel better, but there's almost instantly a little dip, and you instinctively drink some more. And you get to a point you see guys so drunk they can't even stand up. Give me a drink, give me a drink. They don't really want to drink. They're trying to hold that without going back. And I think that's the phenomenon of craving. Instinctively, don't let me go, just let me stay here. But eventually you get so drunk, you got to do it, then you got to get sober. I said, okay, I understand that, Bob. If that's the case, then now they're getting in trouble with alcohol, why would they drink now? They know better. He said, that's the other aspect of it, kid. You know, a few years ago, a guy gave me a tape of a talk I gave when I was 3 years sober. And he wasn't taping my talk, he was testing his tape machine. He just found an old tape in the closet and gave it to me. And I found myself talking about something I haven't talked about for many, many years. His description of me changed my mind. He said, kid, when people are born and grow up, you face a lot of problems in life, and conflicts, and hard times, and situations. You find things you like, and things you don't like, and problems you have to work through, and emotions that you got to deal with. He said that process is called maturing. And if you do this, you become a mature individual. And mature individuals lead pretty comfortable lives. They seem to enjoy their jobs. They seem to take care of their kids. They don't do things that make them feel bad. They get along. They don't owe anybody a lot of money. They just live pretty comfortable lives. He said, but this almost never happens to alcoholics. I said, why not, Bob? He said, because when we get long-term problems, instead of solving them, we can drink them away. Here's to you, household finance. Here's to you, bitch. I never liked you anyway. Here's to you, Mr. Collins. Take your job and shove it. Which is all very nice, except I don't know that I'm building up a closet of unresolved emotional problems. And the day finally comes, I'm going to straighten out. Okay, baby, I've had all that crap I'm going to take. I'm going to do a good job now. I'm going to become a straight guy. I'm going to work, take care of my kids, take care of my home. I'm going to go to work every morning, maybe do some things. It's going to be great. And never once knowing that is impossibility. Because all of my future is based on intermittent beck and call of childish emotions. That they hurt my feelings. I'm going to run away. I'm going to quit. and on. We call them alcoholic emotions because it sounds a little nicer. Yes, I guess that's my alcoholism. What are alcoholic emotions? I hate you. You hurt my feelings. I'm going to run away. I love you. Let's get married. And on, a closet full of them. I said, Jesus, Bob, that's the story of my life. It gets so unpleasant that you have to have a few drinks. Then it gets so bad you got to get sober. He said, that's right. He says, you drink till you have to get sober. Stay sober till you have to drink. Drink till you have to stay sober. And every time you go back and forth, your head says, see, it wasn't the alcohol at all. It was those people, what they're doing to you, and how they're treating you, and how they misunderstand your needs. And nobody really cares, and you give so much, and you get so, and on and on. I said, Bob, that's the story of my life. I've been doing that ever since I've been grown up. I never heard anybody describe it like that before. He said, there's a name for people like you. I thought, uh-oh, what could that be, Bob? He said, you're an alcoholic. And I said, my God, I'm an alcoholic. That's what I am. I said, why doesn't AA describe it the way you describe it? There's all this obsession of the mind and allergy of the mind, all that crap that's just baloney. He says, they do, kid. Read that thing on the wall there. It says, 1, we admitted we had a problem powerless over alcohol. Then there's a dash, which means end of thought, beginning of new thought. And in addition to that, we have lost control over our sobriety. He said, if either one of those substances weren't there, you would not be here, nor would anybody in this crowd. If you could still drink, you'd be out drinking. If you could stay sober comfortably, you'd be home tonight staying sober comfortably. When you can't do either, you're driven to rooms like this, and you sit there while your mind tries to prove that your case is different. Completely ignoring it. It's all very funny, except in America, alcoholics of our type, it's estimated something over 90% of us still die drunk with all the help available. And most of them been to AA. But, Jesus, Bob, that's the story of my life. That was in January of 1959. And I never really had a strong desire to drink since then. You say, why no? His life turned out wonderful. No, it didn't. My life was terrible. I'd get fired after jobs. My boss I'd get smart-mouthed, ugly, and somebody gave me some hand-me-down clothes. A guy named Pat Moore gave me some hand-me-down clothes, and they didn't fit very well. It's just terrible. And what happened is that along the way somewhere, I got feeling so bad that I found myself doing something that I never tried to do ever. Admit some of my weaknesses. Weak people hate to admit they're weak. Strong people don't mind talking about their weaknesses. Weak people, that's all you got. If they find out, they won't like me. And little by little, my sponsor, I'd, in desperation, cry out to him, Bob, Jesus, here's what's happening. He said, try doing this. And I'd try doing that, and I'd feel bad. My God. And what happened was, I suppose, in that period of time, although I never knew it at the time, and I look back, I see it so clearly, I gradually began to feel that that man knew how I felt. You think, what's the big deal about that? Because to the best of my knowledge, I never knew anybody that I believed knew how I felt. My dad didn't, my doctor didn't, my psychiatrist didn't, my bosses didn't. They all said, I know how you feel. Well, no, goddammit, you don't know how I feel. But this guy knew how I felt. And you think, well, what's the big deal about that? I'll tell you the big deal is, everybody in this room and every room like it has had enough advice to last them 10,000 years. We get advice from everybody, just passers-by, for Christ's sake. You ought to shape up. After a while, you learn to just shine it off. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate your advice. But if you find somebody that you believe knows how you feel, that advice becomes meaningful information. And you might take actions you would never take. I remember standing in a meeting with my sponsor. He said, see that woman over there? Yes, I don't like her. He said, I want you to apologize to her. What for? Someone told me that you called her a bitch. Well, she is a bitch. Why do you think she's a bitch? She told her new girls to stay away from me. Well, you apologize. Anybody else in the world, I'll guarantee you, I'd say, screw you. If you want to apologize, you apologize. I'm not going to abase myself that big. But somebody that I felt knew how I felt. I found myself going, sorry. Bitch. I understand you're thinking about quitting your job. Yeah, Bob. Jesus. They got me stuffing envelopes for $1.09 an hour. I used to have an office bigger than this company. And I'm getting out of here, Bob. He said, you stay on that job till you get a better job. I said, Jesus, Bob, you don't know what it's like. I don't have to know what it's like. You stay on that job till you get a better job. Anybody else in the world said, I'm not going to stay here. I'm not some kind of a goddamn animal. But somebody who seemed to know how I felt had a reason for saying, I understand you didn't go to the Thursday night meeting again. Oh, Jesus, Bob. It's a big cult. A bunch of brown noses each other. Just a bunch of goofs. They treat me like I'm a piece of crap, Bob. Well, maybe they know something you don't know. You go to that meeting. And on and on and on and on. And time after time, he would snatch me back from the brink when I felt so bad. When I was 2 years sober, I finally got a little job as a beginning writer in a medical corporation. And I had more experience than everybody that worked above me, but I was so glad to get it. I still didn't have front teeth. I'd go to work and I'd have to hold my lip like this. People thought I'd been burned in a fire, I guess. But I really had a lot of emotional problems because I'd never sustained a job like this, and people would hurt my feelings, and my inferiors would put me down. I mean, they were my superiors, but they put me down, and I just said, Bob, Jesus Christ, I feel like I want to kill these people. What did I do? And he told me what to do, and I'd do it to get a little better. And little by little, I stayed there. I went to work every day. He made me insist I go to work every day. By the time I was 5 years sober, I was director of advertising for that big medical corporation. I had front teeth then, and I smiled. In case anybody new here has lost your teeth, let me give you some hope. Once you become spiritually perfect, they grow back. I don't remember exactly when that happened. When I was 7 years sober, another guy and I were brought into Hollywood, and we created something called Boss Radio. It became the #1 hard rock station in the world. And we all wore shiny suits and said things like, what's coming on down, baby? God, I had the Rolling Stones in my office. I thought they were the dreariest bunch of pukes I ever saw. When I was 10 years sober, I was downtown doing public relations for an oil company. 15 years sober, I was a marketing director in Beverly Hills. When I was 5 years sober, the same wife and all those children heard the crinkle of green in my wallet all the way to Dallas, Texas. Leaped out of their post office box, rushed to my side. 9 months and 10 seconds later, another Catholic hit the street. Well, I got a book on the rhythm system, ended all that crap, I'll tell you. Now they're all grown up. 3 of my daughters turned 16 this year in AA. Very proud of them. Only the other kids are not alcoholics, I guess, and one of my son's wife keeps going to Al-Anon, but she's probably just doing that for friendship. Trying to learn how to release her father-in-law, I think. But anyway, only one of my kids has turned out bad. You hate to talk about these things, but my oldest daughter has become a judge. I so wanted a defense attorney, but no. She comes home at Christmas and she says, Daddy, remember when we were little girls? We used to send us to our room. I said, sure, honey. She said, when you come to Albuquerque, I'm going to send you to a little room. I have no need to go to Albuquerque. But, you know, isn't that nice? And when I was 15 years sober, some hideous fit of misjudgment. The trouble with AA is that AA is not designed to get you sober. Over the years, I had come to do the steps. I'd put in great pain and agony, little by little changed my life. And at 15, I discovered that the purpose of Alcoholics Anonymous probably is to very slowly do what alcohol did fast, to change my relationship to the world, to look at things differently. I didn't know that. And one day I found myself doing the oddest thing you can imagine. I left a job as a marketing director of a publishing firm in Beverly Hills, and for the last 31 years, I've been the managing director of the Skid Row mission that threw me out in 1958. And people say, why wouldn't you give up your great career to run this mission? And I can't think of a good answer after all this time. Well, it was such a significant decrease in salary, I thought it must be spiritual. Well, I'm still looking for those two bastards that threw me out. Once I get them, I'll be out of there. You know? But every morning I go to work and I get out of my car and walk around and step over the bodies of dying men, women, and children like you and me, like I used to be. There goes one now. I believe your hair is moving. And I go home at night and I somehow feel more like a man inside than I ever did going down all those elevators with my shiny suits. And very quickly, I want to say it in 2 or 3 minutes. I know we're out of time. The birthdays took too long. But I loved them. I don't misunderstand me. I mean, but I could not accept I could not return to a higher power. That's one thing. To take the steps, I couldn't do that. I remember my sponsor one day said to me, "Can't you, for Christ's sake, believe in?" I said, "I can't return to God." He said, "Nothing says you got to return to God. Or you return to a power greater than myself." Doesn't say that. It says you come to believe in something. You don't return to anything. Can't you believe in AA? Can't you believe in God? I said, "No, I can't. If God exists, I am damned. So I got to believe there's no God." He says, "Can't you believe in AA?" I said, "Hey, it's nice. Some of the people I'm getting to like, but it's too religious." He says, "You think I'm doing better than you are?" I said, "Of course you are." He said, "Congratulations. I'm your new higher power." And I could accept that. He could not send me to hell. He tried, but he couldn't. And as a result of doing things that he helped me to do little by little over a period of time, I came to believe in AA. And by the time he died, I was praying to God. And I would never thought that possible. But as was pointed out to me, I'm not big enough for God to hate. I'm nothing compared to God. So maybe God just loves us all, and I got to do something about it to get some of that grace, if there is any, floating around. And I came to believe in God, and I prayed to him earnestly. And the third step I had a difficult time with at first, because it says, turn your life over to God. That's meaningless. So I had to write it in my head to say, do what he says. My sponsor, do what he says. And as a result, I guess that's the same thing. And looking back, but over the period of time I took the steps. The only therapy I've had now since October 1958 is Alcoholics Anonymous. And I want to tell you something else to you new people tonight. You'll hear a lot of things around here. You'll hear things like, oh, AA is all right for your drinking, but how about your emotions? Maybe you're bipolar. Let me tell you just one little sentence on that subject.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.